My name is Violet Fuller, and I was 31 years old when my parents handed my little sister a company I had spent nearly a decade bleeding to build. It happened over breakfast, eggs, coffee, betrayal. I had just finished an all-nighter fixing a customs disaster involving one of our overseas shipments from Qingdao. A single incorrect shipping code had nearly delayed $80,000 worth of merchandise. By the time I solved it, coordinated with suppliers across 3 time zones, and calmed our Chinese partners in Mandarin, the sun was already rising. I walked into the kitchen exhausted, still wearing yesterday's blazer. My mother barely looked up from her phone. My father folded his newspaper with that fake, calm expression he used whenever he was about to ruin my day and expected me to smile through it. "We've decided Savannah's going to take over as CEO, he announced casually. I blinked. CEO of what? Our company, Mom replied. She's 26 now. It's time. I turned toward my younger sister. Savannah sat at the counter in silk pajamas, sipping iced coffee from a mug that read Boss Babe Energy. She looked way too pleased with herself. I think I've got the vision for it, she said with a shrug. Branding. Leadership. Big picture strategy. Big picture strategy. This was the same woman who once asked if fob on a shipping document meant free of baggage. The same woman who thought quarterly tax estimates were kind of like astrology for businesses. I stared at my parents. You're serious? Dad sighed like I was being difficult. You'll still help from the background. You know the operations better than anyone, but Savannah has the personality for leadership. The personality, not the experience, not the years, not the endless nights spent rebuilding systems while everyone else slept. Just the personality. I laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. I'm the only person in this family who speaks Mandarin, I reminded them. I built our overseas partnerships. I modernized logistics. I created our inventory tracking system. I negotiated supplier contracts. I've been running this company for years already. Mom waved her hand dismissively. And you've done wonderfully, but Savannah needs a chance to catch up. Catch up. Savannah had never even started the race. That same week, she moved into the glass-walled corner office upstairs and posted an Instagram reel with dramatic music and the caption, CEO ERA Let's Build an Empire. She loved the office. The sunlight. The skyline view. The selfies. Meanwhile, I stayed downstairs in the operations office with no windows and a chair that squeaked every time I leaned back. The actual work still landed on my desk. Supplier issues. Late invoices. Shipping delays. Vendor negotiations. All of it. Savannah kept forwarding emails to me with messages like, "Can you summarize the China situation for me? Need talking points for lunch." The China situation. Like it was gossip. Instead of the foundation of our business. Within days, our overseas partners started noticing the difference. At first, they sounded confused, then cautious, then openly concerned. One of our longtime distributors emailed me privately saying, "Your new leadership appears inexperienced. We hope stability has not changed." That was the polite version. The real message was obvious. They didn't trust her. Savannah tried compensating with aesthetics. She hired an interior designer before she reviewed a single logistics report. She ordered a neon wall sign that said, "Women Who Lead." She started holding energy meetings, where she used phrases like intentional expansion and luxury mindset scaling. Amanda, from operations, asked how we planned to resolve delayed shipments from Beijing. Savannah smiled confidently. We need to stop focusing on obstacles and start focusing on alignment. Amanda just blinked. I nearly walked out. Savannah loved words that sounded important because they allowed her to avoid learning anything real. What she hated were numbers, contracts, accountability, phone calls, deadlines, and consequences. One afternoon, a major Beijing client threatened to cancel an order after Savannah ignored their approval requests for 8 days straight. She forwarded the angry email to me with the subject line, "Help Lowell." At the exact same moment, her Instagram story showed her at rooftop brunch drinking champagne with the caption, "CEO self-care matters too." Something inside me hardened after that. Not anger, clarity. I stopped arguing with my parents. Stopped trying to explain. Stopped begging them to understand the difference between confidence and competence. Instead, I started documenting everything. Every ignored email, every delayed payment, every shipment issue, every crisis I quietly fixed before anyone upstairs realized the building was shaking. Then came the Shanghai visit. Our Chinese partners announced they would be stopping by to observe the new leadership direction. Savannah thought they were visiting to celebrate her promotion. She wore a white designer blazer and had the assistant order imported matcha for the conference room. When the partners arrived, they greeted her in Mandarin. Savannah froze for half a second before smiling brightly. "I don't speak sushi," she joked. The room went dead silent. I felt physically sick. Mr. Zhao, our lead partner, a man I had worked beside for 6 years, slowly turned toward me. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. That single look told me everything. The company wasn't transitioning. It was collapsing. And Savannah had no idea she was standing at the edge of it. After the meeting ended, Savannah rushed into my office, looking panicked for the first time since becoming CEO. "What was that?" she demanded. "Why were they so intense?" I stared at her. Because for once, nobody was protecting her from reality. "You could have warned me," she snapped. "I tried," I said quietly. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in her life, Savannah looked uncertain. Not embarrassed, not humbled. Just confused that charm alone hadn't saved her. That night, long after everyone left, I sat alone in my office under the cold fluorescent lights while supplier emails continued flooding my inbox. Upstairs, Savannah's office still glowed through the glass walls. Beautiful, expensive, completely empty, and for the first time in years, I stopped rushing to save someone who never bothered learning how not to fall. Ryan's collapse had happened slowly enough for my parents to ignore it. Savannah's happened all at once. 3 days after the Shanghai meeting, our overseas partners stopped returning her calls entirely. Purchase approvals froze. Payments slowed. 2 vendors quietly paused shipments until they received confirmation that leadership was stable again. Stable. That word followed us everywhere now. Inside the office, people stopped laughing. Conversations lowered into whispers. Whenever Savannah walked by in another expensive blazer, pretending confidence could substitute for competence. The sales floor felt hollow, like everyone was waiting for bad news they already sensed coming. Savannah responded by doubling down on performance. On Monday morning, she gathered the entire company into the conference room for what she called a culture reset. She stood at the front, holding an iced latte and a whiteboard marker. "The problem," she announced dramatically, "is that everyone's operating from fear instead of abundance." Amanda stared at me like she physically needed help surviving the meeting. Savannah wrote, "Vision is greater than stress," across the board in giant letters. "We need to stop obsessing over problems," she continued. "We're building energy here." Amanda finally raised her hand. "What about the delayed freight payments from Beijing?" Savannah smiled patiently, like Amanda simply lacked imagination. "We're manifesting solutions." The silence afterward was painful. Later that afternoon, one of our warehouse managers stormed downstairs looking furious because a major shipment had been rejected at customs after paperwork Savannah forgot to sign sat untouched for 6 days. She forwarded the crisis to me with a Slack message that read, "Can you handle this?" I mentally overloaded RN. Meanwhile, her Instagram story showed her shopping for office decor. That was the day I stopped covering for her completely. Not publicly, not dramatically. I simply stepped back enough for everyone else to finally see what I had spent years protecting them from. The cracks spread fast after that. Employees started coming directly to me instead of Savannah. Quiet knocks on my office door. careful voices. Hey, technically you're not leadership anymore, but can you look at this? Do we have a backup plan? Are we okay? At first, I avoided answering. I didn't want to become the invisible safety net again, but the fear in their faces was real. And unlike Savannah, they were actually carrying the consequences. Then Jonah quit. Jonah had been with the company longer than Savannah had possessed a driver's license. He knew every inventory system by memory. Losing him was like losing part of the building's foundation. Amanda called me that night around 9. He walked out, she said quietly. Said he doesn't recognize this place anymore. I leaned back in my chair, staring at Savannah's latest unread Slack message glowing on my screen. Quick question. How do CEOs deal with people randomly quitting? Randomly. Like morale collapsing out of nowhere. Like leadership had nothing to do with it. The next morning, my father showed up at my office unannounced. He shut the door behind him hard enough to rattle the glass. You need to fix this, he said immediately. I looked up slowly. Excuse me? The partners are panicking. Employees are leaving. The company is spiraling. I stared at him in disbelief. I warned you this would happen. You're sabotaging your sister, he snapped. That almost made me laugh. Sabotaging. For years, I had been the invisible engine keeping everything moving while Savannah floated through life, protected from every consequence. The moment I stopped absorbing the damage for her, suddenly I was the villain. I've been holding this company together for 5 years, I said calmly. You just never noticed because I did it quietly. Dad's jaw tightened. You're bitter. No, I replied. I'm tired. For a second, something flickered across his face, not guilt, recognition. Like he was finally seeing a version of me that no longer needed his approval to survive, but it disappeared almost instantly. That afternoon, Savannah sent a company-wide email. We are temporarily recalibrating operations to realign with our future vision. Stay inspired. Within 2 hours, 2 more employees resigned. The office became eerily quiet after that. People cleaned out desks silently. The espresso machine Savannah insisted we lease because luxury caffeine fuels productivity, sat untouched in the break room. Even Amanda looked exhausted. One evening, she stepped into my office holding 2 coffees. You know everyone already sees you as the real leader, right? She asked. I looked back at my computer. That doesn't matter. It should. Maybe once, hearing those words would have felt satisfying. Now they just felt heavy. Because leadership wasn't glamorous the way Savannah imagined. It wasn't aesthetic. It was responsibility. It was staying awake at 2 a.m., fixing disasters nobody else even knew existed. A few days later, Mr. Zhao contacted me privately asking to meet downtown. No assistance, no formal boardroom, just honesty. We sat across from each other in a quiet cafe while rain slid down the windows outside. He stirred his tea slowly before speaking. We are concerned, he said carefully, not about the company, about its leadership. I stayed silent. You built these relationships, he continued. You understand operations, stability, accountability. Then he leaned forward slightly. Your silence is currently the most competent thing happening inside that building. Something in my chest tightened hearing someone finally say out loud what I had spent years swallowing quietly. He slid a folder across the table toward me. Inside was a revised partnership proposal, operational restructuring, emergency stabilization measures, a recommendation for interim leadership reassignment. Savannah's name appeared nowhere. Mine appeared everywhere. I looked up slowly. Are you asking me to take over? We are asking you to stop standing behind someone unqualified while the company burns. The honesty hit harder than cruelty ever could. When I returned to the office later that evening, Savannah was spinning in her chair upstairs, recording another motivational video for social media. Amanda walked past me holding resignation paperwork from another employee. How bad, she whispered. I looked toward Savannah's glowing office. Bad enough that everyone finally sees it now. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and drafted something I never thought I would. Not a resignation letter, a leadership transition proposal. Real operational plans. Real accountability. Real structure. No slogans. No vibes. Just truth. I stared at the document for a long time before saving it, because deep down I already knew the next meeting wouldn't decide whether Savannah failed. It would decide whether my family was finally forced to admit who had been carrying them all along. By Tuesday morning, everyone in the office could feel it. The collapse wasn't coming anymore. It had already happened. Employees whispered behind closed doors. Vendors stopped responding. Even the break room felt tense. But Savannah still walked through the building wearing oversized sunglasses and talking about visionary leadership. Then the email arrived. Urgent. Executive Partnership Review Meeting. Mandatory attendance. Savannah forwarded it to me almost instantly. "Do you know what this is about?" I didn't answer. That afternoon, the Shanghai partners appeared on the conference room screen, calm and emotionless. Mr. Zhao spoke first. "We value our partnership with Fuller International," he said carefully. "However, continued instability in leadership has forced us to request immediate restructuring." Savannah laughed nervously. "Wait, what exactly does that mean?" "Mr. Zhao didn't hesitate. "We are recommending a different acting CEO." Silence filled the room. Savannah slowly turned toward me, her face pale. "You knew about this. I warned everyone," I said quietly. Her expression hardened instantly. "You wanted this." "No," I replied. "I wanted you to take it seriously." The board meeting happened later that evening. No screaming, no dramatic explosions. Just exhausted people finally admitting the truth. The vote passed unanimously. Savannah stepped down as CEO. I was appointed interim leader effective immediately. Savannah stood abruptly, furious and humiliated. "This company needed vision," she snapped. Amanda finally spoke from across the table. "No, it needed competence." Savannah walked out without another word. And for the first time in years, nobody ran after her. The following weeks were difficult but steady. Vendors returned. Employees stopped quitting. The Shanghai partners renewed their contracts after we rebuilt the operational systems Savannah ignored. One evening, Amanda placed a coffee beside my desk and smiled. "You know you've been the real leader this entire time, right?" Maybe she was right. Because leadership was never about titles, glass offices, or Instagram captions. It was about responsibility, consistency, doing the work even when nobody noticed. A few days later, my father finally called. "You embarrassed this family," he said coldly. I leaned back in my chair. "No," I answered calmly. "The truth embarrassed this family." My mother later asked if I could include Savannah somehow, because she felt lost. But for once, I didn't feel guilty. I had spent years shrinking myself so someone else could feel important. I was done doing that. 1 month later, the company was stable again. Not perfect, but real. The office no longer felt heavy when I walked through it. For years I had existed there, like a ghost fixing everything quietly, while someone else took credit. Now, when employees looked at me, they didn't see the backup plan anymore. They saw the person who had kept the company alive all along. And maybe that was the real ending. Not becoming CEO, but finally realizing I never needed anyone's permission to lead.